It's Wednesday. That means it's all Utah hockey time. And thanks for joining us at the All Utah Hockey Podcast. I'm Petey. Along with me, as always, it's Craig Morgan. And in the middle, from the Salt Lake Tribune, Salt Lake City Tribune. I know, I can't just say
No,
Salt
you're
Lake
right.
Tribune.
You were right.
Is it Salt Lake Tribune?
Yeah.
See, I said it right there. But I'm not good at this. I'm going to keep practicing, Belle. But Belle Frazier joins us from the Salt Lake Tribune. And before we even continue, Belle, I'm going to get right into it. Monday's collapse. How was the mood at the Delta Center after that 5-minute barrage by the San Jose Sharks?
It was very bad, as you can imagine. I think the vibes up until that point were pretty good. Utah scored its first period goal since Anaheim. They were up, I believe, 2-0 after 20 minutes. So granted, no disrespect to the San Jose Sharks, but it was a Sharks team skating without Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith, who was averaging, I think, 4.22 goals against per game. So you would kind of a missed opportunity if you don't get a few on them early on, especially because it was something Utah was struggling with. They had scored 3 regulation goals in 4 games, and none of which came in the first period. So you thought they got off to a good start. And then a highlight, we were talking before, we thought the story was going to be Matias Maccelli getting his first 2 goals of the season, playing on the second line with Hayton and Schmaltz, and how that combination was working, what Maccelli's season will look like now that he's gotten the first one off his back, et cetera. And then in the span of 1 minute and 50 seconds in the last 4 minutes of the third period, they let up 3 goals, lost 3 defensive zone faceoffs in dire minutes of the game. And then I don't know if it was them thinking they were going to win the faceoff and be able to clear the zone, but a lot of unmarked guys in high danger spots, when first it was a 3-goal lead and maybe you let up a little bit, but then once it's a 2 and then a 1-goal lead and then it's tied, I think we talked to coach and the players after, it almost turns mental. It feels like it's snowballing and, you're an NHL pro, but you kind of just don't know what to do out there. And then I think once they tied it, it was pretty clear which team had the momentum going into overtime, and didn't take long for San Jose, Alex Wennberg, to close that one out. But I mean, you said it was just pretty much a full-on collapse and extended a losing streak to 4 games. You thought maybe the 3 games was a wake-up call for them, but I think in this one they were embarrassed. Coach said it afterwards. It's unacceptable and it's embarrassing. And I think there's a difference of going out there playing 40 out of 60 minutes and having some positives from a game, but that one, I mean, you can't take much from it, and I think Clayton Keller and Lawson Krause talked yesterday where you have to use it as a learning experience, but that's not who they want to be. It's not who the team wants to be seen as. And it turns tonight into a very big game against the Calgary Flames on a Wednesday afternoon in October. Maybe you didn't have it circled on your calendar before, but, Utah's response tonight is going to be really telling.
Yeah. I just want to make this about us for a minute, Belle, because I'm sympathetic in this situation. You probably thought you were going to have a fairly early night, didn't you, with making headline?
We're like, story's done, 3-goal lead in the third. We'll be out of here by 10:30.
Yeah, been there. That's awful. Just a highlight and delete kind of night. Yep, I get it. Go ahead, Petey.
Yeah, for me though, and been around this league for a very long time, and I've been inside locker rooms for over 20 years. I have never seen a collapse like that ever. Like a 3-goal lead with 5 minutes to go is you just lock it down. I could get one. I do get one. It's a 6-on-5. You go, okay, things have changed. I'm stunned. If you watch the highlights from that game, it looks like the same goal 3 times. And it's the same mistakes. Same mistakes 3 times in a row. Again, sometimes Belle, this is where I get a little grumpy. I did a breakdown of this, and if people want to go to our all_Utah YouTube channel, you can see a breakdown of every goal, see who screwed up and what happened. What I don't understand is it's 4-1, 4-2, 4-3. I have 2 identical goals. They're going to pull the goalie again and it's going to be, a similar situation could arise, call the timeout then. Call the timeout at 4:03. Let's draw this up. Let's take a deep breath here. Hey, how are we getting beat off the wall every single time? Okay, we're not going to get beat off the wall this time. We're going to take our guy all the way to the net. We'll box up the front of the net, and we'll leave Ingram. Ingram's got to take the extra guy. Okay. I'm absolutely stunned at how poor defensively this Utah team played in that last 5 minutes. So,
nice segue.
The good news is we'll leave that. That's one. And honestly, in the coach's room, that's one you just got to move past and just hope you don't have those kind of mistakes again. But now they've got some defensive reinforcements. They recognized a problem that defending was going to be a problem. Lost Durzi. Marino's never dressed for the club yet. Time to get some help. And we talked about it last week, Craig. We didn't know where it was going to come from, but they made a trade. Tell us about the trade they made earlier today.
Well, let's let Belle do it because she's the reporter now. I'm just, I don't know.
What the hell do you do?
I'm kind of a passenger on this show. I feel like,
why do we have you on then?
The Utah Hockey Club acquired defenseman Olli Määttä from the Detroit Red Wings for a 2025 third-round pick. This is the one they got from the Rangers. It's a late third-round pick. Obviously, the Rangers will be good, so they hope that Ollie's going to fill, some of the void left. He can't possibly fill the roles that Sean Durzi and John Marino were going to fill, however. So this, to me, feels like a stopgap. Want to get both of your thoughts on this. This feels like a stopgap that will get them, if they don't suffer any more injuries, to the end of the season, or at least till those guys maybe come back late in the season. I know Bill Armstrong was out there saying, yeah, we're always looking to improve the club. I watched that news conference and I was like, wow, Bill's going all GM speak on us today. I don't think that they're going to make another move for a defenseman. Of course, every GM will always say, always looking to improve the club, but I don't think they feel the need anymore. So it's ride with Ollie and what they've got, and we can talk about what that means for this defensive core moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just needed another body in the D core. Like, that was pretty obvious. I think when Durzi went down and Marino was officially ruled out 3 to 4 months and Durzi 4 to 6 months, Bill Armstrong even said today they wanted to first look internally for answers before, giving up an asset in a trade. And they called up Patrick Koch for that time. He never got in. And then Maverick Lamoureux, I think he's been a bright spot for Utah during this tough stretch. But at the end of the day, he's 20 years old, playing in his third NHL game tonight and logging probably more minutes than he ever would if Utah wasn't in this situation. And the same thing with Michael Kessering, who's been, given so much more responsibility than he ever had. Bill Armstrong was talking about his overtime goal in Boston. He was like, that's a position that kid would never have been in if Sean Durzi and John Marino were healthy. So, I think it's exciting for them to step up, but they gave up 17 goals against in 4 games. And, that's full team defense that fails there. But I think it became more clear and more evident that the Band-Aid fixes of call-ups for their blue line was not going to cut it. The NHL is too good of a league with 2 good scorers to kind of just hope your 20-year-old prospects fix the problem. And like Craig said, I don't think Olli Määttä is going to be they're not going to be the best defensive team in the league now, but they have a 30-year-old 2-time Stanley Cup champion who knows how to win, who's stable, who's steady. And that was kind of the main theme today. Bill Armstrong said, we just need someone to calm down our defense group right now, and he can do that. And if that means letting Lamoureux and Kessering skate 3 less minutes a night and he takes on that load, so be it. And he said it's just about finding guys the best role for them and the best amount of minutes without extending them to the point where they're making plays that give up a lead in the third period, that type of thing. So I think it's a good voice, a good veteran. I talked to Ian Cole today. They won the 2 Stanley Cups together with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And he had a lot of great things to say about him. He said his claim to fame was introducing Määttä to Chick-fil-A when they were in Pittsburgh. He'd never had it before. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, that's a familiar face in the locker room to kind of get him acquainted with the new team. And Coach said they're going to go with 7 defensemen tonight and 11 forwards, and that Määttä's going to rotate with Valimaki and Kolyachonok just because, he was in Detroit yesterday, flew in this morning, and is learning the system still. So yeah, it's not going to solve all the problems, but I think it was a necessary move. And the second they sent Doan down to the AHL, you kind of felt like something was coming because they didn't pull anyone up to fill the 23-man roster. And I think I'm glad they did it.
Petey, go ahead. I know we're both thinking the same thing when we hear 11-7, right?
Yeah, so get ready on your phone to make the picks. There will be a too many men on the ice penalty tonight by the Utah Hockey Club. Traditionally, this team is horrific at taking too many men on the ice penalties, and it almost always happens when they dress 11-7 because they're double shifting Clayton Keller, and somebody's going to jump out early. So just be on the lookout today for a too many men on the ice penalty. It's hard to rotate 7. I get why they're doing it. I think you need to, not only do you need to ease him in because of the travel and how difficult of a transition it is, but you've got to play a different system now. And there is no way he can pick up. He hasn't practiced yet. He hasn't been on the ice with his teammates. Like, there's no way he can be prepared to understand how to play this. He's a defenseman in the National Hockey League. He's an NHL player. He'll be fine. But to put him out there and have him log 15 to 18 minutes isn't fair. It's not fair to him. So I think easing him in tonight, I think, is definitely the way to go about it. And your alternative is to sit him out. Well, I don't think you can do that either. I think you desperately need him. So I get the 11-7. I just make sure the guys on the bench are paying attention. Craig?
Well, I had a couple questions. Just curious how they address this today. And I know part of this is going to be they're going to have to tinker with the pairs. They're going to have to figure out how these guys look together, what the chemistry looks like. But it's another left shot. As some people thought they'd go after a right shot. And, Bill Armstrong told me today they basically called about every defenseman in the NHL. So I know there were Ivan Provorov rumors out there. He told me they're not interested in Ivan Provorov. But how do they work him into the mix, first of all? Do they have any sense of what they're going to do with the pairs? And are they concerned at all with that left-right split, which most coaches like to have?
Yeah, no, we asked about the 5 left shots now, and he was saying, like, Bill Armstrong was saying, you just got to figure it out. It's better to have one more defenseman who's a left shot than have, what you have right now. And I think that's just the mindset. And that's been the mindset since Durzi went down. It's don't try to be anything you're not, don't put too much pressure on yourself to be on the offside. Don't turn into a two-way offensive defenseman because that's what Durzi was. Like, if that's not your game, don't try to force that and just do what you do well and try to do it for longer. And I think that that's kind of the mantra that they're going to have with Määttä is again, you said they haven't had a practice. Coach said he'll play with Valimaki and Kolechanik tonight, but that could completely change by next game. He said he talked to a lot of the coaching staff in Detroit. He wouldn't tell us what the coaching staff said, but just a lot of tips on, where Määttä plays well, just the type of player he is. And I think he'll take that into consideration paired with what he sees from him tonight. And as of now, they're supposed to have a full practice tomorrow before they head out for their road trip. So I think that will be kind of a really big experimental time for them. And I think it's going to change a lot because now when you look at Cole, Bortuzzo, and Määttä, that's 3 veteran defensemen that don't have the same type of game, but you're not adding, a young offensive defenseman. And so I think that's going to be a balance too. But I do think it kind of adds, not to say balance game, but again, a balance. Like when it's Valimaki and Kolechanik on a pair, you're kind of a little bit nervous, and I think that's why they brought him in to be able to kind of add some experience back there. So I don't think they know what they're going to do yet, and it's all about just seeing what gels. And yeah,
I want to talk a little. Go ahead, Petey. You go first.
No, I'll be quick because I know you want to talk about. You've had a chance to talk to a lot of people around the league on what they're saying about Olli Määttä. I just want Utah fans to recognize this is a stopgap defensively. This isn't the answer to get this team into the playoffs. This isn't, hey, let's get the pom-poms out. We're in the promised land. He's a 30-year-old defenseman that has been incredible defensively, but when they won the Stanley Cup in Pittsburgh, he was a 7th D. Like he is a 5, 6, 7. That's what he is. Defends really well, works incredibly hard. You're going to like his work ethic and all of those things, but he's not lugging the puck up the ice like Sean Durzi. They're still lacking the ability to create offense from the back end, and you're relying on Kesselring and Sergachev to some extent, and we haven't seen that part of his game yet. But yeah, Määttä is going to help. He's going to help lock things down. He'll help on the penalty kill. But you mentioned Cole, Bortuzzo, and now Määttä. You got 3 guys in their 30s, all very successful, very good, experienced NHL defensemen, but they're all in their 30s. So it's going to help shore things up, but it's definitely not the end all be all for this Utah club for the long term. Craig?
Yeah. First off, for selfishly again for Belle, I did talk to 3 beat writers in Chicago and Detroit and Pittsburgh, and the thing that comes back, and you hear this from NHL staff as well, is first off, he's an incredible guy. Everybody loves this guy. He's a great dude. He's a great interview. So have fun with that, because that's half the battle for us. Let's be honest. Yeah, exactly. But beyond that, I did reach out to a couple. I talked to Rick Tocchet a little bit about him because he had him in Pittsburgh, and I talked to Mike Sullivan as well. The thing about Olli, he does not have great foot speed. Let's just say that bluntly. He's not a great skater. He defends well in confined spaces. He'll be good net front. He can kill penalties for you. He can clear the net, as I said. But speed is his challenge, right? He's not going to be great off the rush. He's not going to be great with wide speed. So those are things that they're going to have to figure out how to manage with him. And obviously he knows himself, having been in the league all this time, but those are weaknesses to keep an eye on with Olli moving forward. I know that there are some, I don't know how you feel about analytics, but we do have a graph from Jay Fresh. He's one of my favorite guys to go to. So if you want some deciphering on this, you can go to various websites. Evolving Wild's another great one. You can read Dom Luszczyszyn's great stuff at The Athletic. You can read Jay Fresh, but it is pretty clear that this is a defensive defenseman, a steady guy. A lot of people that I spoke to describe him that way. He's a steady guy with a very high hockey IQ. He's not going to make mistakes mentally. Where he'll make mistakes is just because of his physical limitations that we just talked about. So again, underscoring what we were saying earlier, this is a stopgap. This is a guy that you don't want to be playing heavy minutes. He really is a third paired guy, but he gives you another body in the lineup to try and get through to the point where maybe one or both of those guys, those injured guys, come back in the lineup, and you hope that you don't have any more injuries so that you don't want to make another move. Like I know a lot of people are wondering, can they go out and get a good offensive defenseman? It just doesn't fit the plan. Again, you got to look at the big picture for Bill Armstrong here. You don't want to block the path of a bunch of prospects who could be with this team next season by acquiring that type of player, unless it's the type of guy like a Sergachev, where you feel like, okay, we can grow with this guy. I just don't think that they're in that mode right now where they're looking to acquire that piece.
I also think, too, just going off of that, not wanting to block room for the other prospects, I think another reason why this trade for Utah was attractive is because Mata's in the final year of a 2-year contract right now with a $3 million AAV. And so even if he has a great season with them and is more than just, a third-pair defenseman and really pushes them to get to the end of the year, they don't need to pay him next year. And I think that helps, where there are a lot of defensemen on the market recently, but they all had 4-year contracts, which, in a team that's going through rebuild and wanting to invest in guys like Lamoureux and their younger players, and when Durzi gets back and hopefully giving Marino a role, they don't need someone for the next 3 to 4 years. They need someone for this season. So I think, beyond the player itself, it made sense on paper to bring him in for the remainder of his contract and then see where you go from there. And, I'm not going to make assumptions, but probably part ways after this season and hopefully have, the healthy group of guys that you thought you're going to have at the beginning of this year.
Well, we've talked about the defending part. We're going to get to the offense in just a minute. But first, I need to talk about FOCO, because FOCO is the leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, toys, collectibles, novelty items, and so much more. It's the best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms, whether it's hoodies, jackets, beachwear, or overalls, bobbleheads, desk items, anything you need for gifts or for yourself, find it at FOCO. There's something for fans of almost every occasion. Get all of your Utah hockey and Utah Utes collectibles and merchandise. And I told you last time, you can get your Dylan Guenther first franchise goal in Utah Hockey Club history right at FOCO. Be the first to pre-order that. FOCO always has our backs for sports, and they can have yours too. Get the best gear around by visiting foco.com and use the code ALLCITY10 for all non-presale items. Use the promo code ALLCITY10 for 10% off. Then, before you go camping and it's getting cold, Craig, make sure you get your Rugged Road cooler. It's dedicated to creating durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best. Whether you're on land or the water, Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every adventure. Rugged Road coolers are designed to always float upright, so you never lose a drink. Rugged Road coolers are incredibly light, making them easy to transport on any trip. The coolers are guaranteed to keep their contacts cool for up to 7 days. Great for fishing, tubing, camping, and tailgating. All of our favorite things for Craig and I on a weekend out in the mountains. They're designed for all of your outdoor and sports enthusiast needs. Gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers, reliable, durable, and built to be used. Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use the code ALLCITY for 10% off. Well, it's back to talk about the offense. Now this team can't score. Belle, any thoughts on what this Utah Hockey Club can do, or what is the problem with this team offensively?
Yeah, it's almost ironic how our first podcast of the year, like 16 goals in 3
I
games.
know.
This team gets it. But I think this is what you expect. Like everyone said it before the season. It's a team still in a rebuild. It's still, they had an average age of 21 years old on their second line the other night with Doan, Cooley, and Gunther. Like no matter how talented those guys are, there's going to be holes. And it is unfortunate when everyone hits a scoring rut at once. But I think it was really good, even though they lost against San Jose. Gunther gets on the board. Michelli gets his first 2, and then Cooley the game before gets his first of the season. So those all come in losses, but I think mentally for those guys, just to get offensively going again, getting their production up, I think it does a lot for how they go into games. I talked to Logan Cooley this week about how he was just overthinking what he was doing. He was thinking about having to get his first one, and then it kind of got him away from his game. And he said when he puts that pressure on himself, he actually plays worse. So he's trying to just go out there and have fun and be the player he is. And, they've been most successful this year when they've gotten to the front of the net, gotten inside ice, gotten the screens. You saw Keller's goal against, was it LA in that second period? Great shot, but that happens because Barrett Hayton is right in front of the goalie. And then Logan Cooley's first goal comes in a tip in front, and Michelli's 2 goals were also rebounds of Ian Cole's shots from the point because he earned inside ice there. And I think Coach has preached that every time, and it's just a matter of time before the players actually listen. Maybe they're not trying not to, but I think he's saying, like, we are a good team and we're getting the greasier goals. And I think they've been pushed to the perimeter a lot, especially on the power play. A power play that started off the season similarly really great, scoring a lot on the power play. And now they will go a minute 30 seconds without getting a shot on goal on the man advantage. And at a certain point, you can't look for the perfect shot. You just have to make a play, crash the net, just get it anywhere near the crease and see what happens. So I think they did a little bit more of that against San Jose, but they're going to have to keep on pushing. And I also think the amount they're putting themselves on the penalty kill too. Like you're not going to get 5-on-5 opportunities. The flow gets broken up when you have to defend a penalty, 2 times a period. So I think it's a culmination of a lot of things, but I will say the one positive for Utah fans is that if guys like Gunther, Cooley, and Michelli have their confidence going, Clayton Keller has his consistency with scoring, you have to think that eventually trickles down through the lineup and that they come into tonight a little less stressed about getting their first one and ready to just win a game.
Petey, what are you seeing when you look at this team and the offensive drought? We talked about their defensive zone issues, and listen, you'll hear every coach say it, that offense comes from defense. And they're going to struggle to create it when they're not playing well in their own end. But what are you seeing specifically in the offensive zone?
There's a couple of things. The biggest thing what Belle said is when they were successful early in the year, and what they're successful with now is when they get to the net. And what's McBain and Hayton are the 2 guys that can do that because they're bigger forward guys. The problem right now is they're playing small, and they're not getting to those areas. But furthermore, when you watch them enter the zone, and it was a problem over the last 2 games, they don't gain the zone. And you'll see teams now, everybody stands up the blue line. Everybody's playing a 1-1-3, and there's no room to try to enter the zone. But what Utah's doing is they're still trying to make those entries with puck possession, and they can't. They're hanging out of the puck too long. You're seeing those turnovers from just inside the blue line. So look for that tonight, those turnovers right after they cross the blue line, and then they turn the puck over. Yeah. If you're getting pressured by that much defensive pressure at or near the blue line, the puck has to go deep. There's just no other option. You have to get the puck in deep, and then you got to go try to get it back. And the advantage is when their defense is standing you up at the blue line, there's no one back there to get the puck. Your momentum is going forward, skating forward. Their momentum is going backward, skating backward. You should beat them to the puck. That's the theory. That's the plan. This team needs to dump the puck more and go get it because they're not getting that extended period of offensive zone time. They're one and done. You've got to get possession. You've got to get the shots from the point. Belle said, you're right. The Ian Cole shots, when you're struggling for offense, it's low to high, which means down by the net, get it back to your defense, shots with traffic. And you look around the league right now, I've never seen so many teams relying on shots from the point with traffic to create their offense. It is honestly, I would like to do a stat. I bet you over 50% of the goals of 5-on-5 right now are being scored in that manner. It's unbelievable. So you're right. Utah needs to get to that. They got to get the puck first. And that's, they got to limit those offensive zone turnovers. So one thing I want to shout out, we got Jordan Harris is on his way to the Utah Hockey Club game in Salt Lake City, listening to this on the way there, getting all of his pregame info, all the positive stuff from Belle, all the negative stuff from me. Jordan, get used to it. Sumi Gabe said, could Mata be traded at the deadline? Quick answer, of course.
Sure.
Yeah, you just don't know. That's so far away.
Yeah, that's way far away. And listen, it's a depth defenseman. It's not like you're going to cash in and get something incredibly valuable for Olli at the trade deadline. But sure, that's an option if the other two guys come back. And if this team is not in a playoff position, then we'll see what we've seen.
For sure.
Most seasons in Arizona.
And one last thing I'm out too is it could restart his career too. He was a guy that's sitting and playing on last year of his contract with nothing to play for next year. He's got to play for a job for next year. Speaking of playing for next year, let's talk about Josh Doan a little bit and his assignment to Tucson. And we've talked about it from the team's perspective that they needed room to bring in Mata. What does this do, and what does it make sense, Craig, for his development for Josh Doan?
I just think it's the right decision. Listen, at the start of the season, I know he was really tense about whether he was going to make this club or not, and they obviously had some guys out. That helped with Nick Bjugstad being out in the situation they were in with not knowing yet maybe what they were going to get from Kyler Yamamoto. I know it meant a lot to him to be on this opening day roster. I remember talking to Shane about this, and he thought it was going to crush him if he didn't make it, but in the long term, and Dad will know this as well as anyone because he got sent down to the A as well, this is what's best for Josh's development. Andre said it himself. You saw the quote. I'm sure Belle was probably the one that asked the question where you could see the lack of confidence in his game. He wasn't playing the same game that we saw in that cameo last season or maybe even, really early on when he still had the energy behind him. Josh isn't ready. He is an NHL player. He's not ready to be here yet. And I don't think it's a bad thing to send a guy down to the A, let him play in a lot of situations, a lot of minutes, get his confidence back. And as I said earlier, work with a guy with the perpetual 10, Steve Potvin, who seems to draw the most out of these guys. He's known Pot since youth hockey. They've worked together since youth hockey. They have a great relationship. I think this is going to be good for Josh in the long run.
And the thing is, he'll be back. Like, no one's seeing the last of Josh Doan in Utah. And I think I agree with you. I think it's what he needs. Coach did say that just about his confidence. He said kind of the swagger he had in training camp kind of slowly faded away as they got closer into the season. And Bill Armstrong said today, from his eyes, obviously it made room for the Mata trade, but he said when a player like Doan is playing less than 10 minutes a night, you kind of know you have to send him down because that's not helping him. We've talked about the NHL is not a developmental league. The AHL is. And he kind of compared it to when they sent Gunther down last year. And he wants Doan to play in all situations. He wants him on the power play, on the PK, to be playing bigger minutes, to be leading the team in minutes and be a big impact player down there, get his shot back, get his confidence back. And once he does that, he'll probably be recalled because they are going to need him at some point this season. And that's someone they're excited about. I don't think they're sending him down because they're mad at Josh Doan for not being, an NHL star in his rookie season. They're doing this for him. And I think he's going to come back and realize, I'm sure it's really tough right now. But I think he's going to realize it's the best thing for him. And, you look at Dylan Gunther again, like I wonder if Gunther reaches out to him and be like, I was in your exact shoes last year. Not that they're going to sign Doan to an 8-year, $54 million contract season, but I think it's helpful with a young team when you have tangible examples in your locker room of guys that this system has worked out for. And I think numbers wise, it just made sense. And this team is better off with another defenseman than a rookie winger at this point. Like that's just how the business works. But yeah, my unhockey related question was, where does Hank, his dog, go? Like, did he get on the flight with him to Arizona? Is there
a really good question? I think we need to find that out because
that's a great question.
See, It's been a little too tense after the games to, ask something like that recently. So maybe after a win, I'll be able to get an answer about that.
There you go.
Yeah, knowing the Doans, Mama Doan is probably there picking up Hank and driving him back all night long, because that's the way the Doan family works, and that's part of what makes this kid special too. He's going to go down to Tucson. Do I think the plane ride down to Tucson, or actually up to Abbotsford, do you think it was fun? No. Do I think he's grumpy today? Yeah, I do. I think that was the natural reaction of being sent down to the minors. Of course it is. But when he hits the ice, he does things one way. I mean, he's going to work just as hard as he did. He's got a great attitude. We talked to the coach down there, Steve Potvin. He said he just exactly the way he left us. He's got his great attitude. He works hard. Can't wait to get him in the lineup. That's who he is. He's going to be back in the NHL. And Craig mentioned his dad. His dad played his first full season in the National Hockey League in Winnipeg. The next year, he split between Arizona and Springfield. He played 39 games in the minors his second year, and then he never looked back. And we saw it with Gunther, as you mentioned, Belle. That's what you expect from a guy like Josh Doan. None of us that have watched this kid play when he was 10 years old thought he'd be playing in the NHL at 22. Nobody. And yet here he is. So he'll be back. I think it is better for the kid long term.
Yeah, we've talked about this, how Josh, after being called a late bloomer for most of his life, seems to be ahead of schedule at every step recently. But this situation in Arizona, and I'm not saying he needs this, because he's such a mature kid, and part of that is really good parenting, where they've asked him to make his own decisions, make his own choices. But he's got a support system here, not just with the family up in Scottsdale, but like I mentioned, Potts is like another parent to this kid. He's known him since he was a kid. It's a really good situation for him to take the next step in his career.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we wish him the best of luck down there. I know they play Abbotsford again tonight down in Tucson. They got a week off, which you're getting an opportunity to practice with them. But I want to talk next, Craig. This goes to you. We've been watching, if you've seen any of the other NHL games, and we've seen how important Sergachev has been and going to be for this Utah Hockey Club. But what about the price? And when you look at the other side of this trade, you look at two players in Conor Geekie, who just got his first goal as a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and JJ Moser, who arguably has been on their top pair with Victor Hedman, arguably one of their best D at times. Yes, in Tampa, their best D. He's been outstanding. Craig, early returns on this trade, Sergachev for Geekie and Moser for both sides.
Well, I've had a hard time watching Conor Geekie, actually, because, I didn't want to see Conor Geekie go. I was really intrigued by that 1-2 punch at center with Logan Cooley and Conor Geekie. They played well. I haven't delved deeply into their stats. I think Utah would tell you that they haven't gotten everything that they want from Mikhail Sergachev yet. But we're 10 games. We're 10 games into this. He's coming off an injury. He's learning new personnel, new city, new systems, all of that. I think it's crazy, first of all, to judge at this point. It would be insane for us to say, like some people, oh my God, this is a bad trade. Like, are you serious?
Really?
Are you 10 games here? But I did reach out to a couple people who might be able to analyze this from a data standpoint better than me. I'm going to put on my glasses, Petey, because I know you love it when I wear my glasses. Okay?
Belle.
Hey, Belle, what did you get here?
Belle, did you see this, Belle? Do you see I wear glasses? Do you know why I wear glasses? Because I need them to see. So I wear them. Craig also needs them to see, but because if his Hollywood star looks, he doesn't want to get the glasses in the way.
Nobody is calling these Hollywood star looks. Okay, so let's dispel that right away. I talked to Mike Kelly, great analyst for NHL Network, Sports Logic, and he was talking about, just in general, he's top 10 percentile among the number of key areas: shot attempts, one-timers, offensive zone possession, slot passes blocked, and he has a very low turnover rate. So when you dive into the numbers, and then you look at the fact that he is out there logging heavy minutes, Dom Lushushin pointed this out, against really, really good competition all the time, he's doing okay. He's fine right now. Is he producing offensively like you hope a number one defenseman will do? Well, no, not quite yet. He's not there. Is he doing all the things that you hope he will do as a number one defenseman? No, not quite there. But again, we're 10 games in, and it's not like Mikhail Sergachev has been a disaster. No, not far from it, actually. When you dive into the underlying numbers, he's been pretty good. So, Belle, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm going to be a Sergachev defender, hardcore, like not to be hyperbolic, but I can't imagine the position this team would be in right now if they didn't have him with the injuries that they faced. he so quietly logs close to 30 minutes almost every night. And I think the biggest difference with him is like, okay, you can put anywhere out there for 30 minutes and they're not going to come back to the bench and complain about it. But it's his level of play and compete from minute 1 to minute 28, where it barely dwindles off. Like him in the third period, he has the same precision, the same detail, the same motor that he did in the first period. And I think that's something that you almost don't even notice because it's just like, oh yeah, Sergachev is like doing what he's doing. But I think that cannot be overlooked, that he's being given these minutes and his play isn't falling off when it hits the 22-minute mark. And he's played in all situations too. You know, he's been big on special teams and he's out there with a minute to go. He's out there with 10 minutes to go. And I think he's not the loudest guy in the locker room. He's not going to give a rah-rah speech in there, but he's someone I think that D-Corps really respects. Michael Kessling has talked about just learning so much from being around him. And he's one of the more thoughtful quotes, I think, in that room. And he takes his role really seriously. And I think he also has kind of a levity to him too, where he's like, listen, Tampa, before we were a Stanley Cup winning team, we were kind of going through somewhat of a similar situation. And I was one of the young guys who they were depending on to kind of break out eventually. And, you know, now he's one of those leaders. So I think, yeah, his consistency, and maybe it's not the points, but everything he does, not with the points or away from the puck, I think Utah is so much a better team and staying afloat because of it. And he's talked about it. Like, he says, I'm not anywhere near where I want to be. I'm still gaining my confidence back from coming back from injury and feeling comfortable in this system. So I think that's really reassuring too for the fans, that Sergachev isn't content with his game. You know, he wants to push, he wants to be better. And I think that's all you can ask for from someone. And I mean, he is their number one defenseman. I know there was discussion in training camp, like, is he going to earn it? When's Marino coming back? What's Durzi going to show? All this type of stuff. But I think he's embraced it the most he can. And I see an upward trajectory from him, especially once, you know, his load management can be lessened just a little bit. Like, give him 3 last minutes a night and see what he has left.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny because both of you guys brought up something interesting. Belle, you talked about his injuries. That was a devastating injury. Surprised that he came back for the playoffs. Like, this is difficult for a defenseman to have a serious leg injury like that and still go back and retrieve pucks every night, knowing you could get slammed into the boards again. It's difficult. So I think there's something to that. And to Craig's point, system is a big deal. His entire NHL career, he played one way, meaning he played the Tampa Bay style, the John Cooper style of defending, and now you're playing something different. Your instincts take over when you're playing such a quick game. I talk about on the video, oh, look, he should have gone here. I'm doing that. I put it on pause and I make those decisions. He's got to do it in a fraction of a second with someone coming at him full speed like Connor McDavid. So that has to be second nature. And I don't think you can learn second nature over 10 games of a new defensive system. I don't. And lastly, I think you look at him in Tampa and his role was just different. It was always Victor Hedman first in every category. It's Victor's going over the boards in every situation. It was Victor Hedman all the time. And now he's that guy. And that takes some adjustment too. He's 26 years old. And it's going to take him time to adjust into the role of what they expect him to be and what I think he can be and how high that bar needs to be set for him. But it's not going to show up over 10 games. And we talked about J.J. Moser's success. J.J. Moser is just exactly where Mikhail Sergachev was. He's behind Victor Hedman. So it makes you look real good when you don't have to be the guy and you don't have to carry those heavy loads in minutes, which he does in Utah. And so I do think that people way too snap decision. I think everybody's going to love this trade. I think both teams are going to be happy with it. I think Mikhail Sergachev in the years to come is not only going to be their number one defenseman, he's also going to be a leader in the room and off of the ice as well. So I do not think, Craig, final thoughts on Sergachev? I know you look quizzical.
I do. I want to make a few more points on that. I don't know that Mikhail Sergachev has played with a perfect partner yet either. He's supposed to be playing with John Marino, right?
Right.
Maybe next year he'll be playing with Dmitry Simashev, who is a really sound defensive player and mobile and can really protect him. And then we'll get a better sense of what he can do. So consider that as well. The pairing matters. You know, I know he was playing with Sean Durzi for a little. He doesn't belong with Sean Durzi. Sorry, that's not the pairing that you're going to see moving forward. The other part of this is, like, when you look at his salary, and I think I might have said this on a previous show, I think he's already like in the mid-teens in terms of AAV, right? As the cap goes up, as more guys sign over the next few years, that contract's going to look better and better. In fact, it's going to look like, he's not even being paid like a number one defenseman. If he doesn't pan out as a number one guy, you're still going to have the flexibility to go get another guy to try and pursue that. So let's give this time before we go judging what Sergachev has brought to this team. Again, he's doing some good things, and the underlying numbers show that. He's not quite where they want him to be yet, but I would not say that he's a significant problem or even a problem for this team at this point.
Well, I'm excited to see how he develops and where he goes, but I think you're right, Craig. The partner for him is going to make a huge difference. And John Marino, gosh, let's hope that we see him get up to up and running soon, because I think he's a player that this team desperately needs. Belle, we talked about is this show kind of like what Craig was saying about me? He said, has he worked with his best partner yet? And that's maybe why this show is maybe off the rails a little bit, because I heard Craig saying that earlier in the break room. So I didn't appreciate that. The next segment, Belle, I'm not sure. I did not like this. Belle, you've got the set of the lay of the land, Belle. You've been around enough. He's the reporter and does the human interest, the fun. I'm the hockey guy, and I'll talk hockey. So when you see the next story and where we're shifting to on the show, you can guess who the contributor was to that. By the way, could you please send me the definition of hyperbolic? Not a hyperbolic chamber, like hyperbole.
Yes.
That's big.
We will ask you to spell it.
I know. First of all, I can't spell, but that's a big word. This is a hockey show. Hyperbolic. Yeah. Hyperbole. See, I know the word hyperbole. I've heard it. Don't know what it means, but I've heard it. We're going to talk about babies. We are going to talk about babies. Are you staying for this?
Are you staying for the whole segment, or do you need
Belle
to go?
Can stay, because we're going. No, she's got to stay, because we're going to talk about Calgary. We're talking about Calgary, and we're going to need her to fill in the blanks on Calgary. Good. But this will be a Craig heavy segment. And Belle, part of working with Craig is you get Craig heavy segments. Usually it's on political news or land deals, where Craig brings all of the facts, or a dog story that will also be very Craig heavy. But this time on the Utah Hockey Club, we are talking babies. Craig, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I've been wanting to write this story for a while, but as you guys probably know, injured players are off limits, and I needed to talk to Geekie before I wrote this story. I'm glad I did, because he gave sort of that fatherly tone to the story with a bunch of first-time fathers. But 6 guys on this team have had a baby within the past, I think it's 10 months, not even a year. And there were 2 more. Yeah, Travis Dermott and Travis Boyd moved on. Otherwise, it could have been 8 guys that had newborns all at the same time. It's a wild story. Geekie said it himself. He's a 13-year NHL veteran. He's been on teams that had 30 kids, on teams that had 5 or 6, but he's never been in a situation where all these babies were, forgive me, popping out in such a short period of time. So Lawson Krause, Alex Kerfoot, Liam O'Brien, Nick Bukestad, of course, had his 3rd. He's one of 2. Ian Cole has multiple kids as well. I'm forgetting someone. Who am I forgetting in this story? That was the 6th. What's that? Yusuf Valimaki. So 4 of the 6 first-time fathers, and it was just fun diving into this story. Naturally, I went to Claire Krause for the lead, because Claire's a good storyteller and gave me great anecdotes. Both of them did. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't even have in this story, but there's a lot of stuff I did. But more than that, I don't think people actually even want to hear me talk about this story, Petey. Let's be honest. They would rather look at baby photos. And we do have a lot of baby photos.
Craig? Don't we all? Let's see some baby photos.
What do we have, Emma? This is Alex Kerfoot with Carrera. Look at that, at a Utes game, no less. Good job, by the way. Good parenting there, thinking of the earmuffs. Okay, those are actually solid earphones. I'm wondering if she's listening to like Teletubbies or something. But, what would you expect from a couple of Harvard products? Of course, they're going to know to protect their kids' hearing. They're at a Utes game. And this was the nursery, by the way, in Arizona that they never got to use. It's a really nice design, by the way. There's Coconut, their dog, but they never actually got to use this nursery. But seriously, look at this kid. Look at those cheeks alone. Belle, I'm a father. Petey's a father. You get a little sentimental when you see stuff like this. These kids are just adorable. So that's the Kerfoots. That's Carrera Kerfoot. What else we got, Emma? This is Liam O'Brien's baby Leilani. And this is the smile on the right, by the way. I'm going to point this out because Obi said the time she smiles the most is when she farts. She drops these stinky farts and then just smiles right in his face. It's almost like she knows what she's doing. I'll let you guys jump in at any point if you want to comment on baby photos, because I don't want to be out here on my own.
I think you've got it, buddy. We've got it. You got it. It's all you. You're rolling. Just let her go.
Okay, here's Lawson Krause. But is it Jazz Bear? Is that the name of the mascot? Is that right, Belle?
Yes, correct.
So there, yeah, there's Isabel with Jazz Bear. There's Isabel in the middle with Butter Pig, of course. At one time the most famous dog in Arizona, maybe becoming the most famous dog. Yep, in Utah now. And then, of course, Lawson at a game. This was the home opener, actually. Claire took Isabel down to the ice, and Lawson got to look at it. By the way, when they were planning the nursery, Lawson really wanted to do the work himself. He was like looking up saws and woodwork, and Claire just pretty much said, no, that's not happening. No, you don't know what you're doing. And he was trying to convince her that he did. And then after it was done, Lawson said, I probably could have done it, but the decision we made was a much better decision because it apparently looks great now. So I think do we have a little bit more here? Yeah, there we go. There's Bugie
from Minnesota.
Look at Bugie with all of his, that is incredible, right? There's Ciela in the middle, the newest addition to the family. Yeah, and PD, this is where you jump in because it has
from Minnesota. But by the way, Craig, could you give me the names again of these kids? What like, can we go Stevie? Like, is that Stevie not allowed? Like, I don't know. Like, I literally that they're very unique. I guess that's what happens with kids today. These kids today.
I do like that they have unique names, and
I know, and they'll be happy when they do it.
Oh, Leilani translates into Czech as well. His wife's Czech, and it's Lelinka. But there's other names that they call her as well.
That's really cool. I did not know that.
And Obi is in fact taking Czech right now. Has been doing it for several months, and I don't think it's going that well because he's talking about chatting with Veg now at practice to try and pick up Czech because he doesn't want mom and daughter talking behind his back as they grow up.
Is that all the photos, Craig? Is that it?
I think that's it, Emma. Did we get them all? I think we got them all. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, they're trying to create their own season ticket base in Utah, so I can appreciate that.
Go read the story. I hope you go read the story at allcity.com because that was a fun one to write. I love doing stuff like that. As you mentioned, I did a story a few years ago on all the players and coaches' dogs. So it was time to do babies because this is it's a really unique situation where you're talking about 6 players on the team having kids within a calendar year. And really it was 8 until those other 2 guys that I mentioned left. So that's a crazy situation for Utah.
Yeah, before we move on, I want to make sure this and all of Craig's stories, make sure you jump on allcitynetwork.com to get all of his content on the Utah Hockey Club. It is where you get the best inside news, and keep track of Belle. Belle's boots on the ground. Belle Fraser at the Salt Lake Tribune. Whatever's going on with the team, she'll have it first because she is in the room. She's talking to the coaches and players. So make sure you read all of their articles. I don't write, so I wish there was something I could plug, but I got nothing. Utah, big game tonight against the Calgary Flames. Couple of stats, Belle, before I get your take. The Utah Hockey Club has not won a regulation game since opening night against the Chicago Blackhawks. I hate to throw that out there. Last time they won in regulation was opening night at the Delta Center. It's something that they're going to have to straighten out. But Calgary's lost 4 out of 5. And the good news for Utah fans, as Calgary's given up 14 goals in their last 3 games. Belle, thoughts on the big tilt tonight with the Calgary Flames?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this before, but I almost think it's worse that Calgary is in a bad spot too, because they're going to come in with the same desperation that Utah is. Both those teams need to stop letting in so many goals and need to win a game. And I think it's just going to be who's going to out battle each other. It almost doesn't matter the lineups and the stats and that type of thing. You know, I talked to Alex Kerfoot today and he said, you know, we're scouting Calgary, but not really. Like, we're worried about our own game. It almost doesn't matter who we're playing tonight. Like, we need to get back to what makes us successful. We need to play cohesive. We need to not let up for 60 minutes. And if that's against Calgary or that's against Tampa or whoever it is, they just need to have a game that they can feel good about. But I do think it is interesting. You mentioned the stats for Calgary, and I think their leading scorer is Rasmus Anderson.
It is, yeah.
So, you know, they're not having the most success either. But I think, as you can see, I'm sitting here saying that after they might have underestimated the San Jose Sharks, who lost 9 straight. So I think they were harshly reminded of the parity in the NHL, and you can't let up for 1 minute and 50 seconds, 8 minutes in the first period, like they did against Ottawa and went down 4-0. So, it's interesting that Calgary's coming in on kind of a losing streak too, but I think it really doesn't matter for Utah. They've got to figure it out, and that's basically the bottom line. They have to have a good game tonight in front of a home crowd that, like you said, hasn't seen a regulation certifiable win in almost a month. So
I couldn't believe that, Belle, when I saw that stat. Like I couldn't. I said, no, this team started off really hot, and you go, oh gosh, there are a couple of overtime wins in there. This is gonna. I think the start for them is incredibly important, because the last time they hit the ice was horrific, and the last 6 minutes that they've played, they gave up 4 goals. So it's going to have to be a really good start. And one of the things we saw with Andre Tourigny coach teams in Arizona is sometimes they struggle to get out of the gate. I think, though, with the change in the lineup, bringing Olli Määttä in, I do think it gets your ability to focus on something else. And you're not focusing on the immediacy of the game. You're focused on, hey, this is exciting for him. It gives you a little new blood. Makes it exciting again. And it's when you're losing, everything is miserable. Everything you do is miserable. Now there's a little bit of joy in the room again, and there's a little bit of excitement, and hey, this is going to be fun. Olli Määttä's here. So I do think that's going to be big. But I think the first 10 minutes tonight are a huge key for this Utah team. Craig, any thoughts on the game tonight at all?
Need a win desperately. They just need a win desperately. And Belle needs something to write about. So, like I said earlier too, off the air, Petey and I have become experts at distracting fan bases from what's actually happening on the ice. So
it is true.
We're here for tips. We're here to support you. You write a story about babies when you can't write a story about the team. So
I do think this is an opportunity for them to get back. You saw the offensive they created against San Jose. I think this is a good opportunity to continue that. I'd like to see this team. Belle said it too. I think tonight's a great night to get a power play goal, because Calgary struggled there, but they have to stay out of the penalty box. And I was joking a little bit about the too many men on the ice penalty, but we've seen it where this team does things to themselves, and where they take bench penalties and they take really bad penalties. They cannot do that tonight. I don't care who you're playing in this league. Anybody can score on the power play. So they got to stay out of the box tonight.
Do we want to start a pool?
Start a pool on which? The too many men on the ice?
The guy that comes over the board too quick?
It's going to be, I tell you right now, it's Clayton Keller. Because he gets so excited, because Clayton Keller, one of the things Clayton Keller gets to do when it's 11-7, he gets more ice time. So I think you're going to see a lot more Keller, and I think you're going to see more Cooley and Gunther tonight. I think you're going to see those guys on the ice a lot tonight, because they're going to have to double shift with that fourth line. They're going to rotate guys in there. So they're going to look to create some more offense. Now, what that does, you get some tired forwards, but I think that the excitement of Olli Määttä will help back there. Final thoughts tonight, Belle? Anything you got coming up on your written articles that we need to keep our eye out for?
Yeah, well, quickly, final thoughts tonight. We didn't really talk about it, but I feel like missed in this slump has Nick Bjugstad's return and what that does for the room too, and for the forward group. We don't need to get into it, but I think that's just a positive that hasn't maybe been highlighted yet because they haven't won with him yet. But he talked a lot yesterday and the day before about this team developing a killer instinct. And he said, when we're shooting the puck, we shouldn't just think it's a shot. We should be thinking, I'm going to score right now. And the same thing about closing out games, that I'm not just going to go out there and play for the last 3 minutes. I'm going to put my body in front of shots. I'm going to be physical. Like, I'm going to close out this game. So he talked about this being an opportunity to develop that killer instinct and be a team that, goes into games and just finishes them, because that's the mental mindset they're in. On my side of things, I'm about to leave for a week road trip. Vegas.
We didn't get to talk about that.
St. Louis. I won't be in Nashville, so I would say look out from content on the road, obviously, about the team, but I've never been to any of those cities, so definitely be trying some new foods, doing some tourist things.
Well, I mean, there's at least 4 choices in Winnipeg.
At least 4. At least 4, and 3 of them are 3 different Joeys. But Belle and where are you staying in Winnipeg? Do you know where you're staying in Winnipeg?
Hotel with the tunnel to the arena, so you don't have to go outside. It was sold out. I'm like,
Fairmont,
how
you couldn't get
in Winnipeg on a Tuesday night?
So where are you staying? Not that we're giving it away, but are you downtown? We won't give away your hotel. There's safety reasons we don't want to do that. But you're downtown in Winnipeg, and you've never been.
Never been.
Well, enjoy. That's all. We won't go any farther than that, Craig. Enjoy.
Nope, not
February. My mom shipped my coat. I'm ready to go.
It is. Then Nashville will be fun, but of course you're not going. It's going to be
going to Nashville. You should have protested that. Should have said, I'm not going north of the border. I will do Nashville and Vegas.
Stay in Nashville instead. Extra days at Tootsie's. Oh boy, never mind. That's a story for a different day. Well, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you joining us to give us the insight of what's really going on with this Utah Hockey Club. I do want to spend more time talking about my favorite Utah hockey player, Mr. Nick Bjugstad, next week, because we didn't delve into him today. He is from Minnesota, in case you didn't know, and so am I. So let's talk about my favorite, Nick Bjugstad. Glad he's back in the lineup, but stay tuned with Craig. Craig, I want to say Joel Pretty from Arizona. We know Joel really well. Said, from dogs to babies, Craig Morgan is the best. Yeah, that's pandering, but that's okay. And he also said, what's the matter with you? Which might be what's the matter? We have to do the Michelli fingers, the pinch with what's the matter.
Doing this yet, by the way? Are they doing this in Salt Lake City for Michelli?
We got to get to it, Belle.
On Twitter. People
I saw it on Twitter.
Yes.
I did see it on Twitter. Well, make sure you read everything Belle's putting out at the Salt Lake Tribune. Read Craig Morgan at All City Network. Follow the show at all_Utah Hockey on Twitter. Follow Belle at Belle Fraser1. Craig at Craig S. Morgan. Myself, follow me at S. Peters Hockey. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, because you never know. It's not just the shows we're putting up on YouTube for video content. So make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Get to the game. Tune in. I would expect some video content coming up over the next few days to see how this team does on this upcoming road trip. Thanks again for joining us. Good luck to the all Utah hockey team. See, they need a nickname. The Utah Hockey Club tonight against the Calgary Flames. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. I'm Petey. That's Craig. That's Belle. We'll see you at the rink.
We all silly like the mayor.